Glad to have you back. You're also on to the Educative Monday on DAYBREAK Africa. Right before I went to that short break, I informed you that we're talking in details about the last media review story we talked about. And joining us to discuss this is Victor Oriola. He's a public affairs analyst, and we'll be talking about the petroleum sector together. Good morning to you, Mr. Victor.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Fine. Are you?
Yeah,
Fine.
Very well.
So before we went on the break earlier, we read a story about from the petroleum sector, and now I'll be taking the story again for people that are just joining us. Now, here's the story. The story says that attempt by federal government and Nigerian petroleum company, I take that again. Yeah. Attempt by federal government and Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to tame oil theft and boost crude production may be yielding low returns as output plunged to a record low. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in a monthly bulletin released said Nigeria's oil production plunged to 999,000 barrels per day in April, the lowest in the current years. The most populous black nation has been struggling with production as oil revenue plummets to a record low. Last year, while revenue from non-oil sector and about 59% from the oil sector, now that about 11%. This is coming as oil output hits record low as Angola takes lead.
You know, I would like us to pick it from a wild perspective because while reading the story, I think I discussed it with Shola earlier. I said, someone asked me, is Nigeria still the giant of Africa? Looking at this, I would like to push it to you first.
No matter what happens, Nigeria is still the giant of Africa. If you look at the GDP and all the parameters, we are still leading. But quite unfortunately that in spite of our potentials, we've not been able to harness it, at least to the best of our ability. We have the people, we have the technical know-how, and we have but the ease of doing business in Nigeria and some of other undercurrents that you see. That is why we are, from the time we've not been able to meet our OPEC quota. We've been struggling to all these things, either talk of militancy in the Niger Delta, we talk of those stealing the crude and some other things. And unfortunately, despite our military might, the investment in the Navy, the Navy assets, and all those things that you have, is quite disgusting that you now as a non-state actor to be policing your.
You know, talking about the Navy and all. Some hold the opinion that perhaps the Navy even has an idea, perhaps they even have knowledge of how these operations are being carried out, but probably there is someone somewhere preventing them from working, or perhaps there is something to gain. What do you have to say to this?
Definitely, if you look at it, I think what is lacking is basically the political will for leaders. Because if you look at some of the operations by our military, either police, even the police, the paramilitary and all that, this thing outside the country, you see that you see them coming back with medals, perform very well because once the environment is conducive, what you need to do is to showcase your talent and what you have.
True.
But here we have so many interests, conflicts of interest and so many things. So I think this is where our problem lies. So and it's very difficult for you because you look at the body language of your boss. If he's not well disposed to maybe taking action on particular issues, what do you do?
Well, now let's talk about Nigeria being one of the top oil producing countries in the world. Right now, we are now on the second list. Angola has taken the first list. What do you have to say to that?
It's because of, I read a report recently about the use of doing business in Nigeria, and it's nothing to write home about. If the environment is not conducive, it will hamper, it will do so many things. And in fact, you can't be talking of foreign direct investment if your environment is not conducive. Because those people come in, the world now is a global village. Yes. You don't even need to pay a visit. What you need to do is to get some of these contact there, and you get the entire picture. What of the infrastructure? here.
We claimed oil vandalization and oil theft seemed to be the #1 problem. And then they paid tons of thousands of naira to Tompolo to help secure
As a
it.
matter of fact, 48 billion naira annually.
In fact, immediately when they mentioned this, when the GMD, still the Melekari, mentioned the issue of this 400,000 that we are losing, the chief of naval staff countered him immediately. That look, that you need about 2,000 tankers to ferry this thing across the border. It's not, which is not possible. So it's like something is not adding up. We are not getting the true picture of what is going on in Nigeria in the oil industry. In fact, if you look at even the subsidy, that is why it's very difficult. At a point, they say we are consuming 68 million liters per day. Some say if we keep changing the figures, even on a calculation, if you look at it, even where you have apart from Lagos, I don't know, maybe Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kaduna, and Abuja to some extent, where you have the volume of cars that will go up such a amount of a liter per day. So if you look at some of those figures that are being shown out, I think we still need to do a critical analysis, and we need to be honest to ourselves.
Sorry to cut you short. Recall that there was a time they wanted to remove subsidy totally before it was cancelled. What do you think would have happened if they had removed the subsidy, considering the recent news that we are now the second oil producing country in the world?
No, because if the condition precedent then what the Nupen, Pegason and other union workers were asking for was that, look, before you remove this subsidy, put the refineries in order, the one we have here, the one in Kaduna, the Warrior, and that at least once we are getting the local consumption ready, it will not affect, the effect will be at least will be cushioned compared to when you are sending the crude and you are bringing the refined product. So that means that you have to sell at the market price. For instance, if that is done, we are talking about maybe 450 to 500 naira per liter. And if you given all the variables, how do you expect in a country that you have a 30,000 as a minimum wage to cope with that such a huge distance? That means we are still buying it 185 now, and you look at the commercial vehicle and some other things, and how people commute daily, and the pains that they go through. So by the time you take it maybe almost times 3, what do you think will happen? The effect, even on the goods and services, you look at the inflation already.
We all experienced the surge when there was small oil scarcity.
So do you actually hold the opinion that it is the importation and exportation of this crude oil that is actually resulting to this, or just as it said, the oil theft? Do you actually follow this?
The theft is part of it, because if you look at it, the theft, the level of the magnitude, in fact, there was a time I visited during the Lembe oil spill in Baisa. I was there, and what I saw is nothing to write home about. And if you look at the level of what those people there suffered, what they are still passing through, then you begin to wonder, are we in the same country? Because in fact, after my visit, it took about 2 weeks for me to treat myself. Some of those things that I inhaled, yes, it was the effect on my system. So if you look at the impact on the aquatic life of those people there is serious. And I don't think our government is because maybe some entrenched interest are benefiting from the misfortune of the whole country.
Today, Monday 15th, we have less than few days to the handing over of the president to the president-elect. President-elect, during his interview after he emerged winner of the presidential election, said the first thing he would do is to hit the ground running. The petroleum sector has been there've been a lot of back and forth ulabalu in the sector. Do you think with the emergence of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there will be a total change, or the opposite way?
What we need to do is to give him the benefit of the doubt, because it will not be fair to him now
to judge,
to preempt what is likely to do. But I can assure you that the first few days, in fact, right from the decision, the people that you call the kitchen cabinet, by the time you get a pronouncement and the list of the ministers, then you'll be able to, because if you are bringing the same set of people, then you that we are, because what Nigeria need now is a quantum leap. It's not an incremental development because of the you have 133 million people in a multi-dimensional poverty. We overtake India. So what else you need is a quantum leap. It's not something that you just work a kind of a piecemeal development. It won't work at all.
Now let's talk about a different thing happening in the country. We read a story earlier today where government officials get about President Buhari, the vice president, some governors, all the governors in the states, of the country, are collecting about 651 million hardship allowance every year. And then when we broke it down, we realized that the president collects about 1.76 million every month. The vice president collects about the vice president collects about 1.52 million every month. Is it annually?
Yes,
annually, among others. I suppose we are the citizens and residents enduring the hardship. Why is it that, like Yorubas will say, I don't want to say it the way Yorubas will say, but we are the ones suffering the hardship. They are the ones getting the allowance. Is something missing somewhere?
It's because of the level of awareness, because of the level of participation. Because if we are really participating, if we are following the government, if we are tracking what they do, it will be very difficult for them to come up with all this. But because we have taken the back seat all over the years, we just believe. In fact, some people believe that, look, let government let them do whatever they hear. That once they are able to do their business, you must follow what your government is doing, because you must ensure that they come up with good legislation and that they govern well, so that the mass of the people.
Is this even constitutional? This hardship allowance?
Is not constitutional, and if you look at it, there was a time the revenue mobilization and fiscal allocation that most of what even our legislator what they appropriate to themselves, that is far above what the law recommends. But because they maybe hardly, you see people hardly challenge or call them to order, and in fact at times when they come back, you see legislator coming for an empowerment program. And look, basically I think there's kind of a lot of misplaced priority here. A legislator is supposed to come up with good legislation, oversight function. But in the case where you see legislator coming back, buying buses, buying computers, giving money, bursary, these are the mainly job of executive, and you see people applaud them. So what do you expect?
So are you saying these projects usually carried out by the legislators, as you mentioned, probably giving out bursaries, and are you saying they are actually wrong?
It's out of their purview. It's not the work of a legislator is to make good laws, is to carry out oversight function to ensure that all the MDAs, the ministries, they are
but the judges are also collecting the same money.
Definitely, because look, it's like a system that is broken down, and there's nobody to challenge. Before you see the CSO, the civil society organization, you see them, but now we have maybe few of them. Maybe you talk of SERAP, that's been doing a lot of work in terms of even going to court to challenge some of these actions. Yes. Then, apart from that, you hardly, unlike in the days of the late Ganifa Emi, Bekor and some Kuti and all those, you see them, they will mobilize people and call out people to challenge the action of government.
However, some people would say it is just a way to give back to the community, just a way to, get the interest of their constituencies.
The question you ask is that are they giving this money out of their own personal pocket, or they are from the money accrued from the constituency project, which is not supposed to be their function in the first place? Because in fact, some of them, they've allowed this constituency project to take a shine of their own legislative duties. You hardly see them. They come most of the time. They are in their constituency. You have to have a constituency office where you have staff there. In fact, each of the legislators I know, at least for a fact, the House of Rep, at least you are entitled to have at least 5 essay. You have a legal advisor that will advise you on bill. you have the most senior assistant, you have other assistants, and most of them, what they do is that they hardly engage qualified people. What they do is that they get some of the people from their constituents who will run around for them and some other things. And that's why you see most of them, when they present a bill, then you begin to wonder if they are part of the society, if they really understand, or if they are getting feedback from their even constituency.
But is it an oversight from the citizens, or the judiciary, or the executive? Because we understand that, okay, everybody is supposed to be a watchdog to the other. Now, where would you put the blame?
The blame is on us, because we allow them to go scot-free. That's it. If you look all over the world, it is the people that you take your destiny in your hands, and you tell those in the government that, look, you need to do this thing. This is the way to do it. That's it. Otherwise, if you allow them to do whatever they like, and that's what we are getting. Because our participation is, if you take, for instance, look at the last election, when the young people determined that, look, enough is enough. Look at what happened across the country. This is the first time that we've never, in fact, almost about 8 governors lost to be a senator. A quarter of a state that they governed for 8 years. About 8 governors.
Now, this will be taking me into post-election crisis. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, seems to be facing a whole lot of court issues right now. All through last week, they've been back and forth, rescheduling, taking it again. Now, report says about 5 individuals are filing against him that, he must not be inaugurated.
Abuja indigenous.
Abuja indigenous. Where does it stand?
If you look at
this is like the very first president ever that we have this much
crisis, and I think it's self-inflicted. It's from the INEC. Before the election, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, promised everything Eldorado that will get this go to be the best, that Beaver is the game changer, that you get it real time. And unfortunately, during that election, the presidential and national assembly election were conducted on the same day. The House of Rep and Senate were transmitted via the same Beaver. They said the result of the presidential election could not go through. Then how do you explain that? And that is why you look at, because if you contest an election and the result is open to everybody, then you know if you lose fair, there won't be any. In fact, even if you want to further it, you want to go to court or litigation, a lot of people call it, look, this. We can't see the result. But now a lot of things are hidden. They are shrouded in secrecy. Nobody can actually say. Recently, there was this report by Premium Times that what happened in Rivers State was a travesty. That Labour Party actually won there. In fact, 2 local governments were used there, and that what was on IRF was different from what they declared.
However, do you see these the aftermath of these petitions? Is it actually realistic to say that, okay, these petitions would actually change anything?
Like what most of the people, the opinion, like Cardinal John Onayeka, I think I want to support his own this thing. Though what we have now is that 180 days for the Court of Appeal and another 60 days for Supreme Court. I think it's not normal to inaugurate a president while you're still having to contend with court cases and some other things. And apart from distraction, you see, you are talking of legitimacy here, because that shows that you are still not in charge. And given our own system and a weak institution, once you inaugurate a president, it will be very difficult. I don't think it has ever happened in Nigeria that president will be deposed. Maybe what you are going to get at the end of the day, you may have a maybe dissenting judgment by the Supreme Court. It happens severally that maybe one of the lordship would say, okay, look, this person actually won all those things, but you see, there is nothing to do with dissenting judgment. It's the majority judgment. Dissenting is just to say, look, this is where I feel that this thing should go.
So in one word, no matter the back and forth from the courts, it will be inaugurated and you'll continue.
We have, how many days do you have now left? Just a few days to go.
I think we should go back to where we started from, the oil issue and all. Now, the federal government invested 48 billion naira into Tompolo. There was a contract between them for pipeline surveillance. Some people define it as using a thief to secure your property, so that it won't be stolen. Do you actually agree with this?
Even beside using that analogy, is just like it's the failure of the system. If you are saying that your police, your marine police, your navy with all the assets, with the submarine, everything, the air force, that they lack the capacity to police the pipeline effectively, and you are giving it to a non-state actor. What you are saying in essence that the non-state actors has the wherewithal to overwhelm your military might. That's what you are saying, and it's a serious indictment on our military. In fact, I want to believe that what we are doing gradually, you see, we are creating warlords indirectly, because look at the level of billions that you are giving to an individual. If tomorrow that individual, God forbid, decide to take arms against the country, what do? It will take you some years for you to neutralize him, because he will have entrenched himself with some of those military and some other things, with the equipment, with the backing. And all over the world now, you have those who we call them soldier of fortune. Those who fight, they are mercenaries and all those things. That's why you see when there's little crisis in a country like Nigeria, where you have interest, where you have huge potentials, you see a lot of medicine-less, and it will take a long while and real effort for you to be able to quench it.
So what is the way forward? This oil issue, Nigeria is plummeting recently. What can we do to actually regain our lost glory?
The way forward is to call a spade a spade. When Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was acting then, way back as far back as 2007, he visited the Niger Delta, and he saw the level of impact of the so-called those who involved in bunkering, these modular refineries. And I think he came up with a very good suggestion that, look, instead of clamping down on these boys, why don't you bring them, like, okay, formally recognize them and regulate the activities. They will also pay back into the system in form of taxes and all those things, instead of going there today, demolish, and before you know it, tomorrow they come back again at it. They know where all the pipes are and all those things. They are familiar with the creeks and all those things. Why don't you? Because we are not doing anything to empower them, either to train them, either to give them skill or education and all those things. They're just there. And the best thing that you need to do in that circumstance is either to bring them into the system, but by ostracizing them and attacking them, they'll continue. And so many promises were made to those boys then, unfortunately, it has not been followed through. Yeah.
But wouldn't it be a case of, if you can't beat them, join them?
Well, that is what is going on. We need to. We need that. I think the president-elect has his hands full already for him.
So many things to address.
Contending for his attention. So I think right from the first day, right from the inauguration day, he need to start hit the ground.
You already said you will hit the ground.
Yes, let's go to there.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate your time on the program this morning. I would actually love to go on in the conversation, because it seems that we are just getting to the interesting part, but our time is actually fast spent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, this is where we draw the curtain on the interview segment. We'll go on a short break now to come back for the rest of the program. Don't go anywhere.